So, coming up first is the man I was talking about earlier, Kenneth Leonard. You're on with Ethan and Jenna.
Hey, Kenneth.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Morning.
I can't think of anything more like fitting for toxic masculinity and mental health than two guys, Ethan and myself, doing a stream where totally unqualified. We're not mental health professionals, trying to just jump in and solve it. That's a very white man thing to want to take on.
White savior complex.
I mean, yeah, it's you guys are putting a lot on the table. There's so much confusion over what toxic masculinity even is. It's one of those phrases that gets people riled up and defensive because they perceive themselves as being under attack. There's this idea that the nature of toxic masculinity is saying that men are bad or being a man is bad. But even being a man isn't a very well-defined or useful concept.
Great.
Can you expound on that? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's completely constructed, right? It's a cultural thing. What it means to maybe this is helpful. So when you think about like traditionally masculine roles in American society, for example, you think about things like being a provider, traits like being assertive, even aggressive, are valued, right? But there's nothing about men that says there's nothing that says you have to be a provider or that you have to have any particular traits to be a man. We just make that up and then project that onto men. And then as our society grows and as people learn about all of the spectrum of ways that human beings can flourish, and women are more empowered, and there are more and more people who don't necessarily identify as men or women who are still living rich and fulfilling lives. The ideas of what it means to be a man are in a state of flux, you might say. And while these traditional notions are being eroded of what it means to be a man, and then you've got young men who are sort of floating in the breeze going, well, what do we do now? That's where these online spaces that you referred to earlier are just very eager to gobble these guys up and say, oh, well, what it means to be a man is to be in opposition to women, or what it means to be a man is to own the libs, or have a gun, or whatever. And you've got these young men who are there saying, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to take on being a man. I want to be a man. And Ben Shapiro is going to tell me how to do it. Jordan Peterson is going to be like, here's what it means to be a man. Make your bed. And they're like, we'll do it. I think there's a problem that on the left, people are more eager to say, listen, you're toxic and you need to stop it, without really helping them understand what that means.
I'm sorry, I love your Jordan Peterson impression, man. That just every time. It's just so spot on.
It's angry Kermit, man.
So
it's angry Canadian Kermit.
It sounds like, for one, we need to stop telling people to just be a man, particularly when we don't have an agreeable definition on what a man is supposed to be.
I mean, and I think a great response when someone says, be a man, is to ask them immediately, what does that mean? And then when they start listing stuff, hit them with the even better question of, why? Who says? Who says that's what a man is? You?
Yeah,
Some people 50 years ago? Why do we care?
So this is the thing, is who says is everyone in their minds, every grandfather, our ancestors and all that, because there's this idea that chivalry is dead, right? This whole, oh, well, women are just so strong now, they don't need us anymore. So chivalry is dead and the rules are all just out the window. And I can understand it feels that way because of the kind of town that I grew up in. nothing changed. Everything was always the same. And when something did change, everybody fought it and kept it the same because change is scary. Now, when you go out
Yeah.
and outside of your comfort zone and you see that change can actually happen, and it does happen, and you don't really have any control over it, you're more likely to embrace it. And so I think that that's why they may be more afraid, is because they're not used to as much change, in the sense of, like, chivalry gave you a list of rules. This is what you're supposed to do. Am I on the right track here?
I think so. I mean, having rules are very comforting, right? Structure. We like structure as people,
Right.
many of us, right? Societies tend to appreciate structure. But it's interesting because, especially in the United States, where you'll find people who oppose everything that we're talking about right now, but who talk an awful lot about personal freedom being something that they value. And it's like, all right, well, look, man, if you want to hold doors open for ladies and pull out chairs or whatever, knock yourself out. Go for it. No one's saying you have to do that or that you don't. And if a woman doesn't appreciate it or doesn't, reciprocate whatever, you think they need to, then, that's their right too. And, times are a-changing. If you really value personal freedom, if you really value personal responsibility and all these things, then we should be promoting and encouraging the exploration of this space for all of us, sort of what it means to be successfully, operating our respective societal roles.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
going on what you said, I do think, oh my God, I hate when that happens. This happens to me all the freaking time. The thoughts just
Happens to me too.
completely evaporate out of my head. Oh, about societal roles. I do think, unfortunately, sometimes people, I don't want to say get offended by chivalry or, automatically confuse chivalry with being a nice person. They think that just because you're opening a door for them means you're opening a door for them because they're a woman. And it's like, no, I just open doors for everybody, like who's ever in front of me. So I think that's important, that we notice the difference between chivalry and just being nice.
Well, I don't know any women that get mad for somebody holding a door open for them.
I have heard some commentary from a few of my leftist friends that they find they get upset by chivalry and they think it's disrespectful. And that's where
I've experienced that.
They just assume that you're doing it because they're a woman, as opposed to just doing it because they're a person.
So I've had friends tell me that they've seen it as being sort of infantilizing.
Well, no, I understand the position on chivalry, but I can't imagine you going to a restaurant and holding a door open for a woman and her getting mad at you.
I've had that happen. Not
really?
But in public spaces, to be like, you think I need the door held open for me?
Yep.
And
wow.
And but the thing is, when the response is like, no, just being nice, then it's just like, oh, all right, whatever, moving on. And it's like, it's not. There's no. This isn't like some giant war that erupts. But I can understand. I blame men for this, not women, because there's a phenomenon that I've seen in our society a lot of the quote unquote nice guy, the guy who will do things under the guise of chivalry, but because he thinks that by doing a nice thing that he's then owed something in return.
Yes, that's also a good point.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, how many professional colleagues I've talked to, friends who'll say, yeah, like some guy, we went on a date and he picked up the check and then thought that, like I owed him something afterward, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
So I think after, I don't know, centuries of that bullshit, I can understand a lady being like, I don't need you to hold the door open for me. Thanks.
Interesting.
I would like to address Jamie's comment in the audience. You shouldn't open a door or doors for women because it's belittling. So I kind of think, Jamie, you missed our point. I was saying that I open the doors for everybody. It's not just women. So I'm not going to stop opening the doors for women because it's belittling. I open the door for everybody because it's the polite thing to do. I don't care about your age, your gender, whoever you are. If you're right by me, I'm opening the door for you.
Well, I think if you take the position, I open doors for women, then I agree with what he said. That should not be the position that you take. It should be, I open doors for people or I don't open doors for people, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that just opens the door to this, radical leftist idea that women are people, Jenna. You got to be careful with this stuff.
I know, right? It's still a new concept. Well,
and on the mental health thing, on the not asking for help thing, of the you're weak if you go seek out help. I mean, I've experienced that personally. I've been resistant to wanting to go to therapy. When I was in the Army and I was dealing with some PTSD stuff, I was like, no, it was very much the like, I'll just I'll work out a bunch and I'll take all those terrible feelings and anxiety and I'll just push it down into my stomach, and then one day I'll die. And that was the game plan, right? And I try not to think about it because it gets overwhelming, the sadness of it, thinking about how many people are out there just carrying burdens by themselves without any help. And you don't have to.
And it's not even, on the topic of toxic masculinity, I wonder, you ever hear about those women that are like, I'm a woman and I know it's my place and I embrace it to be second or less than?
I've never seen a woman say I embrace being like less than, but I have seen women where they're like, I'm okay with like the man being the dominant figure and me being taken care of. Yes, I have seen that.
So that's the same thing, just different words.
I'll tell you.
But so I think that might go along with toxic masculinity, is what I mean. Like, I wonder what y'all think about that.
My mother remarried a few years back, and my fiance and I, we went to the wedding, and my fiance did not grow up in the sort of evangelical bubble that I did, and the sermon given at the wedding at the church that I grew up in was just straight out of Ephesians 5. It was, wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord, for this is right. It's the husband is the head of the house in the same way that Christ is the head of the church. So I mean, and this is nearly verbatim. The message was, if you listen to what your husband tells you to do, if you just obey him, everything will be all right. God promises. And I'm looking around the church and I'm seeing the women of the congregation just sort of smiling and nodding. And my fiance is like white knuckling, gripping my hand, like wide eyed, like, I can't believe is this satire? What the fuck is happening? But it was completely serious. And yeah, there are millions of people in America who just think that is what, of course, a woman's role is to be submissive and silent and be guided around by men.
Do you think that comes from religion, or do you think it is before? Like, do you think there was something else in society that caused that prior to religion?
Like more cultural?
I think it's religion, because there's nothing inherently about women that would in any way like necessitate them being subjugated in this way, right? There's nothing about sort of the natural order of things that says this. This is completely constructed and imposed on women, and predominantly by various religions all over the world.
So would you all put that under the same kind of scope of toxic masculinity? Like, would you, because I don't know, it seems kind of the same thing to me, is embracing that the male is the one that's responsible for everything, like that whole, I wonder if that's.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't just harm the women, it harms the men too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about all of the positive dynamics of a relationship that are going to be absent if as a man you think that your job is just to lead your wife and not to be a partner with your wife.
Right. You see these walls built between couples. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, all I'm saying is that this is not an optimal relationship for anyone involved, and that's a thing about what toxic masculinity is at its root. It's
Right.
not necessarily just these are man behaviors that are harming women, and that is what people on the right hear when you talk about toxic masculinity.
Oh.
A set of cultural norms that harm everybody.
Yeah. Well, yes. I hope that wasn't under the impression that I'm saying that toxic masculinity wouldn't harm men. Yes, I think that was my point, was that it does harm everyone, men and women.
Yeah.
I also think that that idea that men have to lead or take care of women also negatively impacts our mental health, because then when we can't, or we don't feel we can take care of them, we start feeling
Right.
inferior. So
Totally.
we need, whoever wants to take care of whoever in their relationship can do that, or it can be completely equal. It should be up to those two people, but we should definitely stop requiring or continuing to say that men are responsible for taking care of women.
Yeah.
Those damn evil liberals trying to push everything forward.
It's taking advantage of men. If you are a woman and you agree to put a man in a position to be responsible for you and not be responsible for yourself.
Anyways, we do actually have several callers. So Kenneth,
Yeah.
thank you for opening up with us.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had a chance, go to youtube.com/Kenny Leonard to check out his YouTube channel.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the plug. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kenneth.
Have fun, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you later.